Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much for joining us for this historic moment. It is, of course, the union of two great minds, two great companies, and of course, two great Toms. Today, Founders Law and Capsule Insurance are forming a groundbreaking partnership to give high-growth companies the legal and insurance support they need, without the jargon and without the surprise, unexpected bills at the end that make you question all of your life choices. Now, I know what you're all thinking. How will this possibly work with two Toms leading the charge? Won't it be confusing? Well, we've run the numbers and we are confident that for every question you ask, at least one of the Toms will be able to answer it. So without further ado, questions please.
In a nutshell, who are Capsule and what do they do?
Capsule are an insurance partner to high-growth, venture-backed technology businesses. We very much focus on new and emerging sectors, new and emerging risks that typically traditional brokers find hard to place. Capsule was really born from our own experience of scaling a private equity-backed insurance business where our once-a-year reactive, non-inspiring conversations with our broker really led us to think who is serving the Monzos, the Gymsharks, the Brewdogs, the Bloom and Wilds of that time, and really try and hone in on the risks that they face and find a better way of serving that market.
For Founders Law, aside from the coming together from two great Toms, what makes this partnership a great fit?
First of all, it is a client need. So it's something that our clients have asked about very regularly. I'd say it's probably our top 3 or top 5 biggest referrals are to insurance brokers, alongside things like employers of record, banking, accountants. So we knew we needed a partner. And I think the second thing is when we knew we needed a partner, it was a case of looking at, well, what does that partner look like? Who are they and how do they fit? And I think Capsule Insurance, as you just heard from Tom, they focus on exactly the same market segment as us. They've got exactly the same attitude towards their clients as us. They're very results driven. They are very innovative. They're technology and data led. And I think for a market which, like law, can be a bit staid and a bit grey, they offer something which is a little bit more colourful and a bit more exciting, like we try to do.
Many hybrid companies see insurance and legal as a grudge purchase. How are you achieving exceptions?
Yeah, I mean, look, we have the same challenges. Ultimately, both insurance and legal are primarily in people's minds about protecting from downside risk. So having that risk outsourced either to an insurance policy or to a lawyer who's going to sort of pick up the pieces for you. But I think the way we've tried to flip it a little bit is that, law in particular, you have this wealth of knowledge in a lawyer. They will work across the sector, they work with multiple different clients, and they almost have this kind of non-executive director style role where they will have seen this across the industry happening 100 times. They'll know what every other client is doing to address a problem. And I think, even without that, lawyers generally should be protecting your IP, protecting your brand value, protecting everything that's important to the company and making sure everything is in the right place so that when you eventually reach either an investment or an exit, you're getting maximum value for your company.
Capsule, what are your top 3 tips for hybrid companies from an insurance perspective?
I think for me, top 3 tips would be making sure you get the basics in place early on in the journey. You needn't spend too much time thinking or focusing on insurance in those first couple of years or from day dot. It will rarely be the determinant of success or failure, but having the essential policies in place early so that if they're requested by investors or requested by customers, you've got them and they're there, would be the place to start. Secondly, as you're starting to scale and things are becoming more complex, once a year reactive conversations just do not work in this space. So making sure that you pick a broker partner that can guide you and advise you and support you on the journey and be thinking about the risks so that you don't have to, I think is critical. And then the third would be, don't think about insurance, don't think about policies and anything like that. Really, really hone in on what are the risks that are keeping me, the exec, founding team awake at night, and then really start to think about the role that insurance can play in that risk transfer.
Founders Law, what are your top 3 tips from a legal perspective?
From our standpoint, I would say ensuring that actually the basic provisions or basic legal building blocks are in place. So we often say to clients, the first thing that people will see of you is your website. So make sure that basic things like terms, conditions, privacy policy, cookie policy are all in play, and represent what your company is doing, so that you've got, you can just build a bit of initial trust with users. I think another one, I've mentioned it briefly, is intellectual property. Make sure you own what you're producing and you've got the right to license it. It is the secret sauce of your business. And I think finally, one that we see a lot as well, unfortunately ending quite sadly in a lot of cases, is co-founder disputes. So when you do set up that company, when you're starting to generate services and business, please make sure you have your co-founder relationship written down in some kind of form of document, because otherwise, if the company does break apart or one founder wants to leave, it becomes very, very messy and very costly.
Capsule, what about Founders Law made you want to work with them?
I think there's lots of synergies between Capsule and Founders Law, both set up at very similar times, both serving very similar population of customers. For me, we're both working in a very staid, traditional sectors of insurance and law, where the status quo that exists within those markets isn't really best placed to serve innovative, ambitious, disruptive businesses. And so both of us have set up to meet those type of clients where they expect to be met, and serve them in a way that better suits their needs.
Finally, are there any concerns that people might think Tom and Tom sound more like the new Ant and Dec than a serious legal and insurance duo?
Well, I think Ant and Dec are a great British institution, and so are both Capsule and Founders Law. So, thank you.